We're making the easiest and best tasting gluten-free pie crust with oat flour. It's made with simple ingredients including maple syrup and can be pressed or rolled into your pie pan. Hello, my name is Nicole Bonilla, and if you love healthier recipes to our favorite foods, then you are in the right place. I love this pie crust because it is so easy to make with oat flour. Now you can either buy the pre-made oat flour or you can grind your own. All you have to do is take some old-fashioned oats or some quick oats, run them in your blender or food processor for about 20 seconds, and then you will have a very fine oat flour. Now to mix the dough, you can do it by hand, but I highly recommend using a food processor. We're going to start by adding our dry ingredients. So I'm going to add 1 cup of my freshly home ground oat flour. Now you're welcome to jot down these ingredients as we go along, or you can click on the link that's in the video description below, and that will take you to the full recipe with all the details. Next, we're going to add 1/3 cup of some tapioca flour, and this really enhances the dough texture. Now tapioca flour is also called tapioca starch, and if you don't have either one, you could also use a gluten-free flour blend, but your dough will be a little bit sandier in texture, and you can also just use oat flour, so you could replace this tapioca flour with 1/2 cup more of oat flour. Next, we're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then I'll just give this a quick pulse until it's all well blended. Next, we're going to add 1/2 cup of butter, which is 1 stick of butter, and you'll want to take it right out of the fridge so it's nice and cold. And then I'll just cut it down into some smaller pieces. And I'll just spread these around inside my bowl. And for a little natural sweetness, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And then we'll put on our lid. Now we don't want to blend this completely smooth, we just want to pulse it. So I'm just going to keep pulsing until the butter breaks down to about little pea-sized pieces. So that's what we're looking for. And then I've just put some water and ice into a small bowl. And I'm just going to add 1 tablespoon of ice water. And then we can mix this until it starts to form a big ball of dough. Well, we now have a nice ball of dough inside of our food processor, so this is ready. Now to shape our pie crust, I find it works really well to do it on top of a sheet of parchment paper. And then I'm going to keep a small bowl of some tapioca flour nearby. Now what I love about this dough is how versatile it is. You have 2 options for getting it into your pie pan. You can either take it and just press it right in, almost like you're pressing in some Play-Doh, and shape it exactly the way you like it. Or you can roll it out if you'd like to have a really even thickness, and then we can lift it and place it into our pan. So I'm going to show you how to roll it out. So we'll start by spreading out a little bit of flour onto our parchment paper, and then work our dough into a nice ball. If your dough feels too soft, you can go ahead and put it into the fridge for about 15 to 20 minutes. That will help that butter firm up. But I have found that under normal conditions, it's ready to go right after mixing. So I'll start by pressing it out into a large circle and make sure I have some flour spread around, but you don't need a ton. Then I'll take my rolling pin and lightly flour it, and then we can start rolling. And as you're rolling, you can do your best to spread it out into a nice even circle. And if you do feel it sticking at all, just add a little more flour to your rolling pin. And then I'm just going to spray it well with some coconut oil, and then flip it upside down on top of our crust. Carefully flip it over. And we can gently lift off the parchment paper, and then we'll gently lift up the sides of the dough so it fills the bottom of the dish. And this dough is very forgiving, so it's okay if it's not completely even all the way around. So once we know we have it pressed down into the inside corner, then we can go out and flatten out the sides. And since this side has a little more dough than the other side, I'll go ahead and break some off and just press it in. And now that we've smoothed around the top, we can decide if we want to leave it as is, or we can go through and make some flutes. Since my pie pan already has some flutes built in, I'm just going to go ahead and work with what's there. So wherever there's a dip, I'm going to press down with a finger and then press up a little higher where there's a rise. Now, if you could use more healthy inspiration on a regular basis, I invite you to join my email list. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, and that is the best way for us to stay connected. Now, if you would like to have that chunkier flute around the top of the pie crust, you'll need to have a little bit more pie dough. So you could easily increase the recipe by another 25% of all the ingredients, and that will give you a little more dough so you can really build up the top edge. And then we want to go through and make some holes with our fork so we don't get any air caught underneath the pie dough. Now you can pre-bake this crust or fill it with your favorite pie fillings and bake as directed. Now I do want to manage some expectations that this pie crust is not going to be exactly the same as a really flaky crust that's been made with white flour, but it will function and hold your pie ingredients just the same and is going to taste delicious. Now you can pre-bake this crust or fill it with your favorite pie fillings and bake as directed. Now I have a little mini pie that I made with this dough, and you can see how it bakes a nice golden brown and is nice and firm and holds its shape. You can break off a piece so it has that nice flaky feel of a traditional pie crust. And it's really yummy. It's nice and firm, but also has that melt in your mouth texture. And I love the flavor of the oat flour and the little bit of sweetness that's coming in from the maple. And it's perfectly seasoned with a little bit of salt and that cinnamon. It's the perfect complement to whatever you want to fill it with. And I love that it's made gluten-free so all of your guests can enjoy it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen. I've included a link to this full recipe, and it's in the video description below, and that will take you to my website, gentletommie.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I cannot wait to have you join me again in my kitchen.